Well, hello Momma fans. Time for another Q&A. And congratulations on the last winner of the, what do we give, a book, Tina. Okay, and I sent that out to her and hopefully she got it. We'll go ahead and start with Teresa Ridge. What is Amanda's website?
He refers to her furniture website.
Yeah, Then and Again it's called on Facebook. And she just refurbishes furniture, and Teresa says that she just loves how she paints it and stuff, and so that's her website on, well, her Facebook, Then and Again. Okay, why don't you read the next one?
Okay, here's
Daniel Lefko.
Can you remember when you were a teenager in the 60s?
See, I was 5 years old, so I wasn't a teenager yet.
I like the Beatles, not the Rolling Stones. Joe might have some awful photos of you.
Awesome.
What did I say?
Awful.
I did? I'm sorry.
So, photos of you way back then. Yeah, we have some awesome photos. I'll post them up here when we do the Q&A of Papa O when he was little. And so, do you remember when you were a teenager?
Yes, we did not have a radio, and if we bought music, it was usually country music. I believe the Beatles, if I had to make a guess, I'd say that would be more like late 60s.
I remember the Beatles. I don't remember the Rolling Stones. Do you? Who was popular?
No, they were, let's say the name's more popular than the group.
What group did you like?
Say, when I was a teenager, I had 2 jobs, and I did not spend my time worshiping.
And you didn't have a TV.
Singers.
You didn't have a TV.
No,
you had
TVs were not invented.
Yeah,
they had them, but they weren't distributed among all people.
I remember when I was little, we had a little black and white TV. You know, they were big and thick back then, and we just got channels 2, 4, and 5, and that was it. And it would go off at midnight and play the national anthem all night, and then come back on again at 6 in the morning or something.
Yeah, I do remember the middle 60s liking a couple of the Beatles songs. Yellow Submarine.
I like that one. Yeah. Everybody loved the Beatles. Girls would scream and pass out, but I never was like that.
Well, I wasn't. I had kind of liked some of their songs, but I definitely did not listen to them in my spare time.
Yeah. Okay, and here's...
And to listen to them in your spare time, what do you do? Go down and actually buy a vinyl record?
Yeah, back then you had to listen, you had to buy a record from them.
A vinyl record.
A 35?
Well, no, it's 33. There's 33 and a third.
33? And
then they came out with, they started doing the vinyl.
The big.
That you would actually put in a player to play.
Wow, yeah. Yeah, so back then we didn't have the all the things that they've got now, where you can put 3,000 songs on.
But when you work a lot to help your parents, you don't spend your time listening to music.
And where did you live when you were a teenager?
Teenager, I lived in Utah.
What did you do to pass the time, since you didn't have a TV or all the stuff kids have now?
Well, when I started the university, TVs were around, but I had no time for the university because I had a job, and then I had my homework to do.
Didn't you start work at age, when was your first job?
Let's see, when I was, first job, well, was when I was 11, just selling newspapers and everything. But later on, I worked in a grocery store and a movie theater and shoveled coal for the furnace of a big apartment complex.
Yeah.
And
your hourly wage was what? 50 cents an hour?
No, it was about $1 an hour.
$1 an hour.
Yeah,
wow.
But I didn't. That was the last thing on my mind, is just to do silly stuff.
Well, your grandma, you lived with her first when you came back out from Canada. She says you gotta get out there and hustle and bustle.
She wanted me to find a job at 11 years old, and I tried my best, but I ended up doing newspapers and sold them on a street corner, and I went into bars and
would sell them.
Newspaper racks that people stole from, so I quit using those. And
okay, that's good. Okay. Okay, these are questions from other channels. I've never got around to getting to these because they're from our other kids' channels. And one of them is, are you really the Action Labs parents? And that's our son Jimmy Joe, or James. And I'd always say, yes. They go, no, you're not. Prove it. And I go, Yes, I am.
But if you watch our Instagram and Roseanne's daily vlogs, she talks a lot about Action Lab and shows a lot of stuff.
Yeah, so all they have to do, I say, well, come to my channel and you'll see that.
You'll see all the posts.
And then some people believe it, that I am his mom, and they'll say, thank you for giving birth to him. And I'll say, you're welcome. And stuff like that. So
we don't look on him as the Action Lab guy. We look on him as father.
Yeah.
With a good wife that are raising very good children.
And my little fellers.
And teaching them good things.
Okay, and are you really Davey's mom and dad? Yeah.
No, I've got about maybe 3,000 followers on Instagram, and I get people asking me, are you really Papa O, or are you really Davey's?
It's funny, they just don't believe it and go, yeah, just go to our YouTube channel.
If you add up all of Davey's channels on YouTube, it's several million people. So I substitute in high school, and I know there's people there that I run into that follow Davey and April, and
the Action
they get way excited when they find out.
Yeah, kind of like celebrities, I guess. I don't know, but they just have a hard time believing that we're their parents. You know, I think, well, yeah, somebody's their mom and dad. I guess they get people claiming that really aren't. And where did Papa O grow up?
You skipped over the bullied.
Yeah, I'll come back to that
one. Okay, in a nutshell, my first 9 years were in Vancouver, Canada. Okay. I was born in Canada. America, one American parent, one Canadian parent that went up there. Their parents went farming up there. Okay, 4 years in California. Then from California, my mom remarried a guy from Utah, and then a good part of my life up until let's say up until I was about 18 or 19 was in Utah, Kearns, Utah.
That's awesome.
And I'm still not asked where I grew up, because I grew up in a lot of places.
Yeah.
And then I went on a mission for the LDS Church. So that's about 2.5 years in Switzerland. And then I went up to visit my father, and
in Canada.
And I decided to go to Quebec to learn French, and I worked a year for there. Then I went over to Europe and stayed a few years, and I kept going back to Europe to live in different countries and learn
the languages.
So I've been in about, I don't know, maybe 20, 25 different countries, and learned their culture and learned their languages. At least about 4 or 5 of them I learned well enough to read literature on a third year level at the university.
And weren't your languages all self-taught except for French and
No, I self-taught myself Spanish and French, and I went back and took classes in them at the university, and like second year courses, and I got A's in that, and I went to third year courses, and I was still getting A's. Third year courses meant you read in the language, you read
and you even
books.
got offered to teach, and you got to go to college for free because you were a teacher.
Oh yeah, when I was getting my master's degree in French, they wanted me to teach at the same time, so I taught first and second year French at the University of Utah. And
your mission for the church was?
In Switzerland.
In what language?
Okay, that was in a dialect of German.
German,
the Swiss don't like it to be called German. They call it Swiss German. Because the grammar is slightly different.
Dialect, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, different dialect, totally.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. I fell in love with foreign languages, and that was going to be my... somehow I wanted to do that with my life.
And then you lived in Italy for a while and learned...
Yeah, that was part of going
Spanish.
Back on another trip there, and then I lived a year in Italy, a year in Spain,
a year in France,
and a year in Quebec, and maybe 6 months in Paris.
Yeah.
So I had wanderlust, as they call it. It's just a desire just to sand in your shoes.
He finally got that sound out. It's hard to get him to go anywhere now, but he got it out of his system.
But it was
He doesn't like to travel now, but he sure
I was
did
going to be
then.
a French teacher. Actually, I was going to teach in what they call Romance languages, and that's Spanish, French, Italian, Portuguese, and Romance, because they're all descended from Latin.
Romantic languages, yeah.
They all come from Latin, and I wanted to major in that, but they didn't have a major. They did, but as far as being a useful skill, there's no useful skill for it.
Yeah, you can't really earn a lot of money that way. And I was just born and raised here in Utah. She's been here my whole life, but okay. Are you done?
I didn't really grow up anywhere because I lived in different countries and different, and my
But he
parents,
calls this his home.
Salt Lake's our home.
Yeah, that's our home.
Because I married Roseanne, and this is 44 years later.
Yeah, so 44 years later, and this is our home.
It's our home.
Okay, did you really get bullied when you were a kid?
Referring to you, right?
At both of us, yeah. And me, yes, because my dad, we had a lot of kids, and we had this big farm, and it didn't smell nice if you were standing on the wrong end of the wind blowing that day because of animals.
They had lots of pigs and
lots
cows
of pigs,
and animals.
yeah, and you could smell the manure. And we were just made fun of. Boy, people just did not like us.
You dressed poor.
Well, Mom kept us clean. And she kept our hair curled,
and your
our
dad,
faces clean, the old spit clean.
Your dad just wanted the farm workers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And boys.
So we were bullied when we were kids, and we just had to learn to just, that's not just be what others think of you. It's not what you are.
But in comments about bullying, I've substituted as my 4th year. I'm retired from computer programmer, network programmer, and I'm a substitute teacher at a high school. Bullying goes, and I've substituted in elementary, junior highs, and bullying goes on in all schools. All schools.
It does.
So it's not like you are singled out and you're the only one in the whole school.
And that's what I thought. I thought I was the only one being bullied, me and my family. And it's not true. There's so much bullying going on. It's just what people do to people. Kids do that.
Bullying can just be insulting a person.
Yeah.
Or it can be pushing them.
And what I found out is it's how I handled it. Like if somebody made fun of me, they're done with it. And what I found, I often bullied myself by repeating what they said in my head over and over.
That's a good way of saying it.
I could have stopped that myself, but I bullied myself by allowing those words to run in my head and believing them. Because they weren't true. Kids just make fun of kids. That's just how it is.
When I was in the 8th grade, a kid that used to fight a lot, he bullied me, and more or less just doing his best to embarrass me or punch me in the back or the shoulder, and that went on for a full year. And he kept wanting to have a fight outside, and I turned him down for a full year, and I prayed about it a lot.
It's scary to have somebody want to fight you.
Yeah, I prayed about it. And one day, without even planning it, he said, "You want to fight? Go out and have it out." That's what we would say, you go out and fight. And I'm not sure what happened, but I think the Holy Ghost said, "Go ahead and fight him. We'll take care of this."
Yeah.
And
so
it
went on
I fought him.
A long time.
I won the fight, and he quit and walked away, and his friends were watching. He never bothered me again.
Yeah, you stood up to him and said, "Okay, let's do this."
So some things you do, you have to be prayerful about it, and you might get help from the
Don't be afraid of prayer.
Yeah.
No matter what religion you are. It doesn't matter. Just pray and ask for help.
Or it's like the guy on the roof that was
sliding
off and dangling.
And a nail catches him.
A nail catches him, and he said, "Never mind, Lord."
Oh no, he's sliding, and he goes, "God, help me, please help me." And then a nail catches him. You go, "Oh, never mind, I don't need you anymore." You go, the nail, God helped you there. So a lot of times we do that. We think we don't need God. You say, "Yeah, you do."
And if you say prayers for help, God has a different timeline, and He may have things that He wants you to learn with the problems that you have, and to be a better person.
It's all meant to be, and people that come in your life is there for a reason and for a purpose. They come and go, and they've left something there for you, and the same for you in other people's lives. You're there for a reason, and so don't underestimate what God can do for you. Okay, let's see, where are we? What does Mappo mean? Okay, that's what we call you guys. You're our Mappo fans, and this is for the new subscribers that don't know what that is.
Mappo,
and that means
the M-O is Mama O, and the P-O is Papa O.
So we call you Mappo fans. I thought it was pretty clever.
Well, rather than just say
hello, folks.
Mama O and Papa O,
yeah.
you just say Mappo.
And then we always end our quotes, our vlogs with look for the rose. And for the new subscribers, that means the story I heard once is Salt Lake City had back in the 80s had flooded, and one of my friends had gone out there to look at the floods, and all she was driving and with her little girl, and all she could see was mud, and she was looking down and she said, "Oh, look how muddy, oh, look how awful, this is terrible." And her little girl reached over and lifted her chin up and said, "Mom, you're gonna miss the roses."
Think that really happened?
Yeah.
I'm gonna get choked up there for a minute.
And that's what we need to do. So many times we cast our head down and we look at the horribleness and the mud and the guck, and all we need is to lift our chin up and say, "Look for the rose. Look at the rose. You're going to miss it." So that's why I like to end our vlogs with "Look for the rose." What number child were you? I was number 6 of 15, and Papa O was number 3 of 5. Is that right?
Well, I had one brother and a few half sisters when my parents remarried. They separated because of religion. Yeah,
so you're number 3 of 5, and you had one sibling die, a twin.
He was born at birth.
And he was born at birth. I was going to scooch past that, and I thought I got to point that out.
That's like somebody says, you know, you're not supposed to when you have food in your mouth.
Don't eat with food in your mouth.
Yeah, and so I got it wrong once and said, don't eat with food in your mouth.
Instead of don't talk with food in your mouth. You said don't eat with food in your mouth. Okay, and I had twin brothers that died at birth, just after they were born.
Okay, my sibling lives in Canada, and he's lived his whole life there.
Your brother Colin.
Yes, Colin. And my half-sisters, a couple of them, I have 3 half-sisters. 2 of them live in Norway, married to Norwegians, and one of them lives in Canada.
And you have a half-brother?
They're by the different spouses of my mother and different spouses of my father.
And your half-brother?
What's the one I just barely said?
Oh, Randy and Colin. I thought
siblings.
Both of them. Okay. And I have 2 of my siblings live in Idaho, and the rest live here in Utah.
They just want to know about me, though.
Well, both of us. Okay. Last question. How did each of your parents meet, and how did you 2 meet? Okay.
I'll tell how my parents met.
Okay. My parents met, my dad's brother had 2 dates one night, and he told my dad, he says, "Will you take one of the dates?" And that was my mom, and they got married. That's how they met. Okay, now you tell yours.
That was too short.
Well, we don't want to go in a lot of detail.
Okay, but I am.
It would make it.
Because mine's more interesting.
Yours is more interesting.
Okay.
Well, okay, let me go back to my mom and dad. And my dad wasn't really real interested in my mom.
Well, that's usually how it is.
That's usually how it is at first, you know, when they, and he said one time my mom started crying, and he just felt so bad for her. He just
out of pity.
That's what he says. He says that she was crying, and he had to comfort her because she, I can't remember what the details were, but that's how they met, and the rest is history on that. Okay, you tell your parents.
Okay, my parents were brought up in Raymond, Alberta. Because their parents had gone there farming, and so my father was brought up in a strict Catholic family, and my mother in a strict Mormon family, and they started going to dances and meeting and seeing each other, and as time went by they decided they loved each other, and so they decided to get married, and they said, but we can't because both of our families hate the other's religion.
Yeah.
One Catholic, so they decided to elope. So from Alberta, which is Raymond, Alberta, which is, I don't know, maybe an hour's ride from the Montana border with Canada. So they hitchhiked from Raymond, Alberta, Canada, or Lethbridge, down to Las Vegas, Nevada, and got married in a courthouse there.
Okay.
And they had very bad times there. He couldn't find work, and anyway, they came back, and my mother was my mother was scared to see her mother, because she'll say, "What? I hope you got married." "No, I don't. Wait a minute, he's Catholic." And and she told her dad, "I'm scared of my mom, what she's going to say that we eloped." Anyway, they got married. When me and my brother were 9 years old, that's the age where you get serious about which church you're going to go to.
Yeah, then it starts to matter.
And they could not agree, and my dad kept, my Canadian dad kept threatening divorce and everything, and finally my mother said, "Okay." So
because he said they weren't really married.
He didn't, unless it's in a Catholic church. My father did not recognize the marriage. It doesn't mean he went out, but he just didn't. But anyway, so they decided they divorced when I was 9, and so my mother, and by that time we were living in Vancouver, BC. That's a different, British Columbia is a different province, and we took a bus, Greyhound bus, down to Los Angeles, California, where my grandma lived. And we lived with her, and then my grandma found a good Mormon boy for my mother, and got him lined up. We ended up moving to Utah, where...
And he was actually a fifth generation cousin. He was an Orgle.
Yes.
So it's funny because your mom's name was Maureen Orgle, and then she married Wallace-Chuck. She became Maureen Wallace-Chuck. And then when they got divorced, she wanted her name to go back to Maureen Orgle. And then she married an Orgle, and so she was Maureen Orgle.
And it made the stories longer when they'd asked that. But anyway, so we moved.
Yes.
My stepfather raised me in Orgle, and he was from Midway, Utah, and he's the one that was with me all through my teen years and gave me a lot of love, and he was my true parent. And
your other brother, Colin, stayed with your dad. Back then the judge would say, "Who do you want to go live with?" And Colin wanted to go live with your dad and in Canada, and Joe wanted to live with his mom. So okay.
So, and I know you're going to say, "Oh, sorry."
A certain amount of time. Okay, and so Joe went to live with his mother, and Colin went to live with his dad,
real father, bio father.
And then his step siblings, his birth dads and his new wife had two children, and then Gene and Maureen, his stepdad, had 2 more kids. So that's his steps, two sisters from his mother and a brother or sister from his dad. Okay, it gets a little complicated when there's blended families, but that's why
for me the divorce is the best thing possible.
Yeah. So you know the siblings you know the best are Bonnie and Maureen. Bonnie and Amy, and the ones that live in.
And there's a new outlook you get.
Norway.
In my situation, like I can say, my quote real father was, my bio father, but the father who was there for me and gave me a lot of love was my mother's second marriage, but he was the father to me and the one that raised me.
Yeah.
And you have to say, you can say, so I don't call him my stepfather, I call him my father, because he was a father to me.
And you find that a lot with steps. You think, do we have to call each other step siblings, or step?
I don't
can't we just call each family?
Even my quote half sisters, I've never called them half sisters.
Yeah,
I called them my sisters.
When you're around them, you just think,
because they're the only sisters I've known.
And you're sealed with in the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints. You get sealed in the temple, and that's your family. Okay, and then how did we meet? We met at a dance, Salt Lake City.
A Mormon dance.
Church.
And after my parents divorced because of religion, I decided it was impressed on my mind that there will be less trouble and less arguing if you have the same religious background.
Helps a lot to have the same religion, and
so often one will say, "Oh well, we'll figure that out later, or I'll join your church later, or something.
Like Papa O was 34 when I married him, and he'd been engaged how many times? 3 times?
Does an engagement count where the girl didn't even realize
it counts that you had asked her.
And I just said, "Oh."
But they wouldn't convert to his religion.
No, that's not an engagement. Engagement is a ring, and you set a date for marriage. So I've only had one.
Okay. Oh, that's me. Okay, but they wouldn't convert. And one of the friends of one of the girls that Joe really liked. He says, you know what, why don't you just go find you a good little Mormon girl and just go get married. If you refuse to marry out of your religion,
and she was a Mormon
in your religion.
Didn't go to church, and I thought,
me?
No,
the friend that
the
said
girl,
that.
the one that didn't realize I was proposing to her. I thought, this is not good. And when they forget, you look forward for a whole week to a date, and then they forget about the date.
Yeah, and so Papa O comes home, and we meet at a dance, and the rest is history.
Okay, let's go on.
Okay, we'll close with a couple of quotes here. I picked out some family quotes, and
okay.
Why don't you pick a couple of those? And
I got it.
You got one? Okay, go ahead.
Number 2. Okay, the family is the most important organization in time or in eternity, meaning afterlife we'll still be alive and we'll still have
our spirits,
love and friendship. Our purpose in life is to create for ourselves eternal family units. I'll read it again.
Okay.
Our purpose in life is to create for ourselves eternal family units.
That's right.
Something
family
that's going to last after this
and
life.
Even if they're blended families, boy, you can make it work. You just can. Okay, the key to strengthening our families is having the Spirit of the Lord come into our homes. And the goal of our families is to be on the straight and narrow path.
So wait a minute.
Oh, you got another one you
liked? The Spirit of the Lord comes into our homes. That means where you've been discussing spiritual things or stories that strengthen your belief in God and things like that, where you just have a really warm feeling inside. That's the Spirit we're talking about. And that's the Holy Ghost telling you that it's true. And the other one was, where did you go?
Right here. This one.
It says straight and narrow path. That means people that are doing what they should do or they're working towards that, that's a harder path to stay on, and there's lots of little side steps
and that happens a lot where you sidestep, but you get back on the straight and narrow again.
And sometimes you have to play catch up of all the
catch up. And just because you get off the straight and narrow doesn't mean you stay off it. Like driving in your car. Like we went down to see a basketball game today, and there were lots of cars on the road, and they're not all just going nowhere. They have somewhere that they're going. And so don't just wander about in life. Have some place that you're going. It's a waste of gas. So we'll go ahead and close. And
you didn't tell them what the roses meant. What? What did you say?
Look for the rose in the mud. Yeah, that's what it means.
Oh yeah, your little story.
It's my little story.
Yes, your big story.
My big story. Yes. So look for the rose.
Look for the good things. And the other one is Davy's saying that's similar to that.
Find good in everything.
Find good in everything you see, or what?
Yeah, something like that. Find good in everything.
Yeah, find good in everything.
Because there is good. No matter how bad you think someone is, or how bad of a day you think you're having, or how awful life may seem, there is good somewhere. And don't talk yourself into the horribleness. Talk yourself into the beauty.
Like when I worked,
it's up to you.
I had a master's degree in French, and I found out that when I tried to get a job at it, it would pay less than my grocery store job did. And I was in management at one of the chain grocery stores, and the number one manager didn't like me, and he was ready to fire me, would yell at me, and so I said,
I don't need this.
I don't need this. So I took some courses, a 1-year course in computer science, and that turned out to be the best move I'd ever made in my whole life.
So we want to thank that guy that didn't like Joe and made his life at Albertsons miserable, and it pushed Joe in a different direction.
And it
was a better direction.
And they ended up, I did so well at that, this computer science job in networking. I did so well at it, they were sending me to Europe and different countries to fix problems in,
he got to
like in Spain and
he got to fulfill his
Sweden,
traveling dreams.
Italy.
Yeah. Well, thanks for liking, commenting, and subscribing, and welcome new subscribers. And remember to look for the rose.
Is that why they're twinkling down and everything?
Good night, everybody. No twinklings.